What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning into the Geekiverse YouTube channel here. And if you're listening on iTunes or SoundCloud, very, very excited to introduce actually another new Geekiverse series. It's been a long time coming. Last week, we introduced Pluscast, which is our all Disney Plus based podcast. Now we're doing a new one based on Star Wars here in the lead up to Rise of Skywalker. So we're going to call it Hindsight, a Star Wars series. I'm your host, Josiah Leroy. With me today, John Fick.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Cap Amerikanski himself. It's been a long time coming.
What's up?
1999, Seth Zielinski.
That's right. I got my best. I'm just trying to really put myself in the frame of mind for each of these movies. Just what kind of a crispy little alt-rock loving fella I was back in the day. So here we are. I crispied myself as best I can, and hopefully it'll inform my opinion.
It is very crispy. Yeah, it looks good.
My hair's very curly. It's hard to get this crispy, but
I like it. So episode 1 here, we are talking about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Throughout this series, we are going to kind of, if you are familiar with our spoiler cast series or a lot of other popular pop culture media entities, we'll do the review kind of as we go along here. So I think it's funny to say, but needless to say, spoilers for Star Wars Episode 1. 1999 this came out, folks. If you haven't seen it, why are you watching us?
Yeah,
but I'm flattered as well.
What's the statute of limitations on spoilers for a movie?
Honestly, I think there's different degrees of it, but for
19 years is mine, so I think we're just good.
Okay, good. My answer is drastically different. For like Last Jedi, I was at like a week.
Oh yeah, easily.
Like there's certain circumstances, but for the most part, if you cared about that movie, you're seeing it in the first week.
Sure.
You can't say spoilers otherwise. I'm very adamant about that.
Fair enough.
So anyway, let's talk about kind of the time around this movie. So this came out in theaters 1999, as I mentioned. What was the original? May 19th.
What a time to be a young boy.
So I was 8 years old when this came out.
I was 12 years old. I was the supposed ideal age for a Star Wars movie.
I might have been the ideal age for this, I think.
You see it when you're 12 years old as you're starting to figure out the world. And let that indicate that I have the most correct opinion.
Oh, boy.
As the ideal
I don't know.
age.
I feel like you guys are going to just share the same opinion on this. So we'll get there. We'll get there.
I'm excited for that.
So the hype around this movie, off the charts. Unbelievable. Whether it was people, it's funny to think of, but like nowadays, we all wait in line on our favorite app, whether that's Fandango or Regal, AMC, you name it, to get our tickets.
Cineplex for our Canadian fans out there.
That's right. But back in the day, it was waiting in line at the theater to get your tickets for this. So
my brother did. Waited hours and hours. I never had to deal with any of that, but
I was going to say your brother would be the guy that comes to mind for this. But that's it's funny to think now how different it is just 20 years later. Anyway, people are hyped off the charts for it. We're seeing the backstory of Darth Vader here. We don't know who this Darth Maul guy is. We're seeing a young Obi-Wan Kenobi. Very exciting. Then we get to the movie. As time, I don't know. I don't remember it being as poorly received right out of the gate. I feel like that built slowly, quickly out of the gate. I don't know. I was 9. I don't remember.
Yeah, I have no. I can't conceptualize the pop culture reaction to that movie. I have no idea.
First time someone told me like that the prequels are garbage was basically by the time Episode 3 had come out. Like I was like blind to the concept that these were not good movies.
I see.
I didn't think they were necessarily the best movies of all time, but I love Star Wars and I loved them and I was young. I still love them, but I'm just saying like it was foreign to me that someone could not like these movies.
Yeah, I remember seeing it at the time. And me being kind of too young to really have like enough of a critical eye to know like if something isn't good. Some say I still don't have that, but at the time I just remember thinking I really love the lightsaber battle. I like a couple other things. I don't understand what was going on in the rest of it, but that to me that didn't register as like, oh, that's a bad thing that you didn't really understand how everything was actually. Excuse me.
Sorry.
How dare you?
I want people to hear your opinion.
Here, ready? Okay. Not to pop lock this,
close.
but okay.
Real close.
Yeah. So at the time, I just thought, oh, I like this stuff, and then it is what it is. So as time went on.
I get it now.
Whenever kind of the cultural sense of this movie is not good set in, I was just like, I would just always accepted it. I never really pushed back against it.
What's funny is here we are, and we've got kind of decorations on the table, as you can see. So I own these. I own this movie way too many times for it being so poorly received. But VHS, when the Blu-rays came out in 2011, I think it was, and then the DVD. John's got the Steelbook Blu-ray, which I have floating around somewhere as well. But there's so many different versions, so many yet to come out with what they're going to do for, the Rise of Skywalker, the boxed editions of this, the 4K, you name it.
Maybe the unaltered theatrical cuts of the original trilogy.
Oh yeah, that's
100%.
You think so?
Yes.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Now that the Fox
they own
was
it.
Fox was the big hiccup, right? Like Fox owned that stuff, and now they own Fox.
I just don't know what was in that contract with Lucas.
True. Yeah.
What he's gonna, because he doesn't want those being seen, but not really up to him. But I don't know.
He's got $4 bill.
It's out there. It's all out there. Just can't buy it. You can just pirate it.
I mean, I have my despecialized editions, so it's like, I got those. I got those.
That'll do it. So, initial reactions to the movie, whether you were whether we're talking initial reactions as a kid or even just now, because basically we're rewatching these. I know a ton of you at home will be doing the same thing in the lead up to Rise of Skywalker. We're going chronological.
Rise of Skywalker's tying everything together. All 9 movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see.
That's why we're doing this.
It's trying to.
No, that's fine.
It's certainly trying to.
Are we doing Rogue One and Solo as well?
Yeah,
I think we should.
Okay. Why not?
If we're gonna commit, let's commit.
Let's do it. Let's go all in on this.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So initial reactions to episode 1, either of you.
So very much like you guys kind of went through your impressions when you were a kid. I'm on the same page. When I was a kid, this was Star Wars. I've heard so much about Star Wars. Saw the original trilogy as a kid. 0 through 7 before this movie comes out, so I don't have too much of a grasp on what those movies really meant, but I was excited. That dude has red face paint. That's going to be cool. His sword lights up. I was excited. Loved it, and just like you guys, I didn't realize it was a bad movie until somebody told me it was a bad movie.
Did you see the original trilogy first?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
I don't know if I could have. I didn't know it well. I was young. I was very young,
Sure.
but I had definitely seen them. They were on in my house. My parents owned the VHSs, so I definitely seen them. But I wouldn't have called myself a Star Wars fan that young in that frame of mind before seeing The Phantom Menace.
This became an obsession for me. This was probably like my first pop culture obsession, and still is the most prominent to this day. So 1997, the special editions hit the movie theaters, and that's when my dad took me. So I was 6. And he kind of asked me, he goes, do you have any interest in seeing Star Wars? Do you know what Star Wars is? And I kind of heard about it. My cousins were older. They loved it. And I said, yeah, I'd like to see it. So he took me to the mall one day, said 2 tickets to Star Wars, saw A New Hope special edition, and that was it. Done for me. And then they all came out within a few months of each other, the original trilogy in theaters.
That was all 97, yeah.
And man, I was hooked. We got the VHS right at home, and it was always on at our house. Always. That was it. So by the time this rolled around, my hype was real high for it, even being that young.
Yes. Yeah, me as well. Me and my brother would always scope out the toy situation, all the fast food stuff. You had Pizza Hut, you had Taco Bell, you had KFC, Poppers, all the different toys for all the different things. I would always get a Choco Taco from Taco Bell because I didn't like any of their other food, and scope out get all the toys. And then eventually me and my brother started doing this thing where we would buy a bunch of toys that were on sale at someplace like Toys R Us, return them where they were being sold for more expensive at Target, and make a bunch of money. You did not have to. They were very loose with what you could return back in those days. So we used to.
That's hilarious.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we would
scheme it for Star Wars toys.
We did. We had.
Listen to this guy.
No. There was a trunk full of these crappy Anakin Skywalker 8-inch dolls that I think it was Toys R Us was
because they were supposed to be 12-inch, but he's little.
Yes. I don't know. I just remember there was my brother opened up. It was like opening up a trunk in Reservoir Dogs and just seeing just a whole bunch of Anakins and us just returning all this. And my brother's like, yeah, for a birthday party.
Oh my gosh!
Made a lot of money.
That's a great.
Made a lot of money.
Get this man right here. That's insane.
What are you gonna do? So, stuck in a statute of limitations. What?
That's a great segue to my initiation with Star Wars memorabilia and kind of how I got into this movie and got excited for it. My next door neighbor, who was younger than me, had a Star Wars not Force Awakens, Phantom Menace themed birthday party, and it was before the movie had come out. So when did it come out? What month?
May '99.
So he was just a few months before that for sure, because I remember he was super hyped for this movie. He would not stop talking about it, and he had this birthday party, and he had everything. He had the Darth Maul piñata. He had like the party bags. I remember specifically these Star Wars bouncy balls that he had, and that was what got me interested in Star Wars. I'm like, there are so many different toys, and all of his birthday presents were all Star Wars toys. So I'm like, this movie has so many toys. I want to love this too.
So many.
So the next week, I made my grandma take me out shopping to find toys, and of course, the movie was so hyped. There, you couldn't find any Star Wars toys.
Yeah.
So what did we find at Party City? A stack full of Darth Maul plates, birthday plates, and that was like my first piece of Star Wars memorabilia, and I loved those plates. I threw them around like little discs. That was my first Star Wars. Like,
good for you.
You just like sparked that memory for me. That's how I got into Star Wars, and
that's
why I got
very
excited.
interesting. Wow.
Yeah, that's what got me excited for these movies. Some plates, some Darth Maul plates.
Wow. Well, I'm glad the marketing did so good. I always look fondly upon the Star Wars marketing. I commercialism in general. I don't know. I have a big soft spot for it. So that's cool to hear. And yeah, that's such a nobody else has that gateway to Star Wars. Nobody else has had that origin story.
Do you remember the Pepsi promotions for these? Like they had the Pepsi cans that had different characters on them.
Yeah.
We used to collect the heck out of those. We would always be hoping for a certain character. And even like recently, so down the street in Buffalo from KeyBank Center where the Sabres play, there's a little cafe called Milo's. And it's been there forever, but you go in and they have an Obi-Wan Kenobi cardboard cutout from those promotions. It's a Pepsi or it's a Mountain Dew promotion. I love that stuff.
Side note, I remember being in a Walmart like late at night, past midnight or something, with my brother and one of his friends, Chris, and they were standing around debating about whether or not they were going to steal that that very same standee you're talking about.
Oh,
They
no.
were thinking about darting out the door. They had a lot of schemes back then. Some of them were just blatant criminal behavior. Now that I
most
look
of it
back on
sounds like.
Yeah.
There was also in this cafe a what's it called? There was a Queen Amidala one, which I think was just Pepsi, but I love that stuff.
Have either of you been to Sweet Jenny's, the ice cream place?
No,
Sounds
actually.
familiar.
So it's off. So this is just Buffalo people. Sorry if you're not from Buffalo. This isn't for you. There's an ice cream place right off of Main Street. If you're familiar with the bar Moorpat, it's also right there. Williamsville Main Street. It's an ice cream shop / comic book store, and they have so much Episode 1 memorabilia there. They have all of the cups from Taco Bell with all the little bus on them. They have a life-size Watto. I don't know why they made that, but this guy bought it. It's all for sale too. The guy's a big comic guy and he sells all this stuff. But make a point to get out to Sweet Jenny's. Ice cream's incredible, but it is a trip down memory lane, man.
Dude, we even at the old Geekiverse studio, like Pete went to like some like garage sale or flea market, maybe it was, and he just picked up all this old Episode 1 merch. Like there was the yellow Naboo starfighter that we had, like that was this big. There was just no end to the stuff that we had. I must have like a handful of those really cheap Darth Maul lightsabers, not the kind that actually make noise.
Like this much?
No, they went out all the way, but like the plastic is definitely
Super
like you
thin?
can bend it
Oh,
easily.
yeah.
If
I'm
you hit
thinking of
something.
there was a Darth Maul lightsaber that dispensed candy that you would flick it out, but the blades were like that.
No.
All right, well, thank you for tuning in to Star Wars Toys and Review. That's
Yeah.
this week.
So I love the merchandise surrounding these. We'll have to dig up some more of it as we get into the other episodes and
Yeah,
just see your surrounding.
The table's gonna get cooler and cooler.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's relatively bare now. So one thing we didn't decide, and we can decide this on air if we know. I have my definitive Star Wars rankings. I know John's kind of working on his. I don't know if Seth, you have a list or not.
I think I have a pretty good idea of mine. Yeah. Do you need?
Okay.
Do you need
so
something?
my thought was not now, but later in, just before we end, do we want to reveal where Episode 1 lands on our ranking of the 10 Star Wars movies and leave the other ones blank?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do that. Let's
how do
do
you
that.
feel?
And we're gonna list them out.
And what my thought was, because I know you're going through it right now, and
Yeah.
obviously there can be a little deviation. We could change it. So let's say like where is it today, and if for some reason in a few weeks that changes for another episode, we
Okay.
could. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, that's fine.
All
I
right.
like that.
I think that'll be fun. So we'll make some we'll put some graphics on screen. I'll take care of that.
Right
Okay.
there.
I'll get them to you.
Well, later in the episode, Seth.
Right there. All right.
Okay.
Again,
All right.
now
This
it's
guy.
twice. Take the one back.
So, well, what do we want to get to? We want to
Driving
get
with one
to
highlight over
the
here.
article I wrote. a few years ago?
Let's
talk more reaction here.
Let's talk about how we feel about the movie today.
Let's do that.
Let's talk about how do we feel about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace today. Josiah, how do you feel about the movie? If you were to watch it today, like you should have
I watched it yesterday.
There you go. How did you feel about that movie yesterday?
I got to say, maybe it's just because I feel like I'm old now. I'm not, I know. But still, I feel like there's if I'm not fully awake, this one is tough to get through.
It was tough to get through.
I still love it. I'm unashamed to say that. I still love it. I don't care if it's not a good movie per se. I still love Star Wars.
You can recognize the fact that you don't think it's a good movie.
No, there's definitely flaws in it. Oh my gosh.
Well,
there's no doubt about it.
Is it a good movie?
I don't want to say it's
good
not
movies can have flaws.
Listen, I don't want to say it's not a good movie.
Okay.
It's not.
That's what I'm asking you.
All right. I enjoy it. That's all there is to it.
That's fine. If that's where you want to lay, I'm just throwing it out there.
There's so many parts that are tough to get through, and there's so many parts that I really enjoy. I think back to when I was a kid, I loved the pod race sequence. Now I feel like it's so drawn out.
I still love the pod racing. I still love it.
I never really grabbed onto it.
I thought it was fun.
Little known fact, I liked NASCAR when I was a kid, so I think that has something to do with it.
Oh, shout out to Trevor Worth. That's the worst. Absolutely. Clip this out.
Trevor still likes NASCAR.
I know. He sends me stuff all the time, and I just block him. It's the worst. It's so bad.
Trevor, I love you, man.
Clip this out. Send it to Trevor.
You're one of the last few remaining people I know.
No, they sell those places out. We're not going into NASCAR.
No, that's a tangent.
NASCAR review is a different podcast. We're starting that though.
If we ever do a NASCAR review episode, I don't even know.
We're gonna need so much more alcohol.
Oh my gosh. So yeah. Anyway, I'm pod racing. I liked it. It's drawn out to a point for me, but you still enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I don't know. I think it's not as long as I thought it was. I rewatched this movie over the weekend, and it did not last as long as I remember. I probably haven't seen this movie before this weekend in 5 years. It's been a while.
I do a binge of the Star Wars movies, or a rewatching, I should say, at least once a year.
Okay.
And it's probably twice a year since we've been getting a new Star Wars movie every year. So I've seen it my fair share. And my gosh, did I watch it a lot in the lead up to Attack of the Clones. Again, being young, I watched it like there was no tomorrow.
Okay.
It's crazy. What's funny, too, in that pod racing, one of the sequences you see Aura Singh, who's a kind of a famous side character now, and they reference her in Solo as having.
That's right. Yeah, an original EU character. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then she's in the Clone Wars as well. So you see this kind of this like very pale skinned bounty hunter with a ponytail. That's Aura Singh. That's who I'm talking about.
Red as a sour ale, it is.
Yeah. Seth, what do you think of the movie?
I am generally, in with the general conception that that's not a good movie. I hold off on the ranking, but it's very low. It's hard to really go into things about this movie that haven't already been said, but it's just I've always been just on board with it. It's slow. There's few good moments. I don't think I think in general, starting Anakin's story with his childhood instead of his adolescence, like we did with Luke and with Rey, didn't make a lot of sense. And there were just a lot of ways that this movie was produced that just is so different than the original trilogy or the sequel trilogy. Even though the sequel trilogy is part of this, is part of the the Disney machine now, it's still there's a lot of inventiveness and artistry going on in the new movies that is difficult. The prequel environment is difficult for it to thrive. And in hindsight, we see a lot of what George was trying to do with them, but ultimately it's some really good ideas that are troubled by poor execution that I think he kind of gets into a groove the later the prequels go along, but episode 1 is it's a low point, I have to say. Sorry to say.
He tried to bring in help with in terms of direction for it, and famously Ron Howard was
right.
He didn't want to do it because allegedly the story was that he didn't want to like take this task on.
Yeah, you don't want to work on such a big project, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The first Star
to
Wars
be responsible for.
I mean, at the time, it is like the original trilogy, and now this is the first new thing since then. It is monumental. It's a much bigger ask than taking on a solo spin-off film.
Oh, totally. And first Star Wars in 16 years.
Yeah.
At that point, right? So that's a long time between movies.
Yeah, that is interesting to note that it's like he was a little bit like it wasn't necessarily his first choice for him to do everything.
I think too, like that gets lost in history a bit, and it resurfaced with Ron Howard doing Solo. Is that it feels like the perception was George Lucas was always like, I'm doing this, I'm in control of it, this is where I want to take it for better or worse. But it doesn't sound like it was that way. Like he wanted help, and he couldn't attract the help that he needed to kind of bring in that direction.
Yeah,
and I don't know how much of a difference it makes in the end.
Yeah, and also just you could tell that there's extensive behind the scenes footage of the making of that movie, and
I watched all of it. It's on the DVD.
Yeah, and it would get right there.
Tons.
And you can just tell that the original trilogy was born of collaboration, and you can just tell that that's not really happening. You can tell he's kind of calling a lot of these shots, and there's certain shots that he's calling that he doesn't seem that like too into just how it gets done, and it just doesn't have that collaborative spirit that the originals or even I believe the sequel trilogies largely has. So yeah, but again, there's a lot of context that kind of also supports some of Lucas was in a difficult position in some senses.
So go ahead, John.
Watching through this again this time, I couldn't help but constantly use the filter. Man, what if this was somebody's first time watching Star Wars? And it was for a lot of people.
Yeah,
there's so many. There's so many introductions to so many different characters. Everyone who was in the original trilogy that gets reintroduced in the prequels is done in such a worse way, and it's just so anticlimactic. The first time you see Master Yoda in this movie is so anticlimactic. The Jedi, the Jedi Hall, the
Jedi Temple,
the Jedi Temple
right
is
in
just
the console.
It is such an anticlimactic room. When I was watching, like when I watch the original trilogy now, I think of a much better, grandiose place where these guys are talking about making these kind of decisions. And when you watch the original trilogy, it's just this awful CGI little hallway, and it's just so anticlimactic. And Master Yoda is just not what he was in the original trilogy. It's tough. It is tough for me to watch this movie and enjoy it, knowing that the original trilogy was so much better. Now that I have that context of a critical eye, it's tough to enjoy a lot of this movie for sure.
I can't imagine I feel like if it was an introduction for a lot of people, they would have been on the younger side.
Sure.
I don't know.
A lot of people were. I mean,
but the filter's less, I think.
So I guess the where I'll combat that, not even combat, but the point I bring up is a lot of people who haven't seen Star Wars, there's a lot of people, they'll ask, how should I watch these movies? And there are psychopaths out there that say the first time you should watch these movies are chronological.
That doesn't, but it doesn't make sense because the movies are clearly, the prequels are presented as if they're supposed to be watched, because obviously,
you're supposed to have that background
so
knowledge.
much about the way,
for sure. I wouldn't recommend this as a first time.
Honestly, I don't know how they would have done the prequels that fit into, because the conceit, of being, you're picking up in the middle of a 12-chapter serial of George Lucas's original idea, and the shock of finding out that Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Dude,
you watch
spoilers.
those first three first.
We're watching the first one.
Sorry,
first.
right?
No,
I didn't give spoiler warning for Empire. Yeah.
Come on.
And if you watch the prequels first and you get to that scene in Empire, you're like, yeah, we know. Why are you treating it like a big thing? And it's just obviously C-3PO being made by Anakin. One of those weird things that's obviously meant to be like an inch.
Because George Lucas said he couldn't resist making.
Why is that a thing?
Darth Vader the father of C-3PO as well. We thought it was a funny little thing.
That doesn't make it better.
So to that point, we talk about something called Machete Order, which, if you're not familiar,
Machete Order is good stuff. Yeah.
Before Disney took over, there was this order where it said you should watch episode 4, episode 5. You get to the end of that with kind of the cliffhanger that Darth Vader is Luke's father, and then you take it back like a memory sequence. You skip over episode 1 because there's nothing relevant in the movie that you have to know for the greater plot.
It could have been a scroll in episode 2.
Yes.
It's true. Yes.
And then you watch episode 2 and 3 and you see the fall of Vader, and then you skip right back to episode 6.
To see how it all ties back together.
And I think that's a brilliant way to watch it.
And then the first time you see Anakin, you see him when he was Luke's age and entering things with Luke's point of view, which is I feel like they should have done with episode 1 in the first place.
It is weird that they chose not to go that route, I think, in hindsight.
Yeah.
Because even, Rey, who's the primary protagonist in this current trilogy, she's 19 when you first meet her.
Yeah.
Right? We don't need to see her as a kid.
I feel like it might have been something with Lucas wanting to make something that appealed more directly to children, which is like, I don't know. Lucas says I feel like kind of retroactively now that Star Wars is like for kids, it's for 12-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like that was always the case. I feel like he's kind of changed his mind about what he wants these movies to be.
Yeah, once he locked in those merchandising rights.
What's that?
Once he locked in those merchandising rights,
sure.
he changed his mind on that.
Sure,
You want your kids to get those toys for Christmas, don't you?
So, but I don't necessarily feel like that was his idea originally, and in years later he went on to say that no, it was always meant to be 6 movies, even though he had outlines for 9 and 12 movies. He changed his mind a lot.
Oh, sure thing. Yeah.
But I feel like the drive towards I feel like having a protagonist he felt children could relate to more, but then that child goes on to become a monster, so that it raises some questions there. So I don't know.
I think it really missed the mark with having him be so young. Like the Star Wars is it's always about the hero's journey, right? That's what all 3 of these trilogies are about, the hero's journey. You can't align with Jake Lloyd's Anakin. It's just not.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what lines you write for the kid. The kid's talented. I know he gets a lot of crap for these movies.
I don't unnecessary for.
Oh, 100%. But it's worth mentioning.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say unnecessary because I think it was taken too far because he's had a tough life.
His life was kind of ruined because of this movie.
I don't know if there was a lot of direction.
That's my point. Yeah.
For not just him, but I mean, like
anybody.
I've heard that throughout the years where actors would kind of say, how do you want this done? And he would kind of just not really lead them in a specific direction, and they would do a take or do a few takes, and they'd say, how was that? And you'd be like, fine.
Yeah, because Luke, so if you watch a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, which you have, Lucas was so obsessed with the post-production. He's like, if this isn't perfect, I have 6 different takes, I'll just edit it together. I'll make you say what I want you to say.
And he started splicing together like
mid-sentence.
like a half of this shot and a half of this shot.
He got
like
crazy.
When an actor did there and an actor did there, which is like the editor was like really concerned about. He didn't really like that, openly.
He was like a mad scientist about it. And it wasn't a lot of the production team was really frustrated with the micromanagement of all these different shots. Yeah.
And besides the direction, I think the casting. I feel like today we're kind of spoiled with how well casted things with children are. We have Stranger Things and the It movies and all these other things that like these kids are fantastic actors. And
Logan comes to mind.
Logan, Daphne Keane. And just watching, besides Phantom Menace, the auditions for the other kids, they really are worse than Jake Lloyd, and I don't think Jake Lloyd is particularly good either. I think that's.
Have you seen Jingle All The Way?
I was just about to bring it up.
In Phantom Menace.
But John, what was Jake Lloyd good in?
Jingle All The Way.
Yes.
The best Christmas movie.
I just
of all
traveled
time.
straight from 1999 and know what Jingle All The Way is. But I think that it's direction, but it's also casting and everything. And I just feel like that's like an industry wide thing. Stuff with kids did not used to get casted and is directed as well as it does these days.
You know what? We'll come back to casting actually because I do want to talk about that a little bit because I think he nailed it in certain cases. Why don't we get into an article I wrote 2 years ago? So in the lead up to Star Wars The Last Jedi, I wrote an article, 7 Reasons the Phantom Menace Isn't as Bad as You think. You can find it right at thegeekiverse.com and just search The Phantom Menace.
Let's just
So
see.
I'm going to say right now, even there's some reasons that I'm looking at it, and I'm like, all right, that's a bit of a stretch, 2017 Josiah.
You represent... It's still surreal to me that there is a significant portion of the Star Wars fan base that loves the prequels, that stands by them. That's something that just did not exist for most of my life, and you represent that contingent, for better or worse. I'm just saying.
For better or worse.
I don't know if you'll take that positively or
Rude.
negatively.
No, it's better.
But you represent that new phenomenon, this new wave of people who really did grow up, watching.
Legitimate,
them from
like I said, I it was years before someone told me that these movies were bad, and I was like. What? I was like, you must be in the vast minority. And
you
then
never quite got on board with it.
It never. Well, at that point, it opened my eyes, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a large contingent of people that don't like these movies.
A large contingent.
Yeah.
The entirety.
Not the entirety. Definitely not the entirety.
Now there's
the
a
majority.
there is a large contingent.
I would say the majority
that likes it.
Sure.
A minority, but a large contingent.
Now, to be fair, all I've done is shit on these movies. This movie so far. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that is unabashedly Star Wars. There's great stuff in this movie.
So also I want to mention.
Let's do that. Before, let's go into a few positives.
Hang on. Kelly Settinger. Author. He is a part of the Geekiverse. He's written articles. He actually wrote an article about the Phantom Menace too. Got a lot of Phantom Menace coverage. It's weird. You would think we were around in 1999. But anyway, he also loves the prequels. I don't know, Kelly, how old you are. Forgive me. But middle-aged man. So usually if I find someone defending the prequels, usually, not always, they're my age or maybe even a little bit younger. Mm-hmm. It's just you grew up with it and you kind of didn't know any better, and maybe there is a sense of nostalgia for it. Because I remember leading up to episode 1, 2, and 3 and how exciting it was. Yeah. And to me, maybe that makes the movies a little bit better. I don't know. Yeah. But Kelly loves these movies.
Yeah, I think we've talked about now we have that critical filter that we didn't have when we were children.
Sure.
Someone like Kelly had that critical filter the first time he saw them. And he still likes them.
That's
impressive.
And actually, I would say Pete, the Grumpy Geek as well. Yeah. I don't know as much as if he likes it as much as me and Kelly do, but we do have it on record. The first week of Geekiverse filming, he said that he liked Jar Jar for what he was. So I'll pull that clip so you can put it right in here.
Please do.
But I mean, if he said that, anything I say should be fine.
All right, let's go into this article.
The Grumpy Geek.
That's my reasons why the Phantom Menace isn't as bad as you think.
So, John, why don't you read just the headline?
All right, we'll start with number 1. It features one of John Williams' best musical scores for a film and laid the groundwork for his other beautiful work in episodes 2 and 3.
Easy picking.
Props to the prequels.
Absolutely.
For the
great
prequels.
Music.
Each prequel movie does have great themes.
Incredible
great
music.
Themes,
so, Duel of the Fates is my favorite from this one.
So good.
The first time you see Darth Maul is when you hear this. It is something.
That's for me going.
Okay. I was like, do I need to stop talking? Okay. Lauren and I were introduced to that song. We were revealed to that song. I love that. It was her idea, by the way. You would be shocked to find that out.
Oh, reveal. Oh,
at
your wedding?
For the first time, as you come down we had kind of a balcony, and that was the song.
I have a buddy who did the Imperial March. That's cool.
Very good. Yeah. Very good. Duel of the Fates comes to mind. There were a few other tracks that I don't know the titles of specifically, but they carried over into kind of variations in episode 2, and then were either changed for
the Pit Pat of Panaka was my favorite.
You never
heard that one?
Oh,
never mind.
It's a real banger.
No. No, I'm not sure. Sorry.
It might not be real.
Sorry. Might not be real.
Jared, formerly of IGN and Kind of Funny.
Jared Petty.
Sweet-itis. Ready? Yes. This is a good one. So he, way back on an IGN podcast.
I will say up front that I don't agree with most of Jared Petty's movie opinions, but go on.
I don't know his opinion on this, but I'm bringing up something about, actually a song. So,
okay.
One of the tracks, so they were talking about spoilers and how, even nowadays, you can't get the Star Wars novel or the soundtrack before the movie comes out. But during the prequels, you could buy the novels a full month in advance.
Oh, not even just the prequels, the original trilogy, too.
And
sure.
And the prequels, the soundtrack, people still talk about that to this day.
So, specifically, Jared Petty gets the Phantom Menace soundtrack in the mail. And one of the tracks is called Qui-Gon Jinn's Noble End.
That's amazing.
What the hell?
Can you imagine? Can you imagine that happening? Yeah.
That's freaking hilarious. Can you imagine, for a moment, if you will, the Force Awakens soundtrack comes out before the Force Awakens?
Sure.
Crazy enough.
There's main titles.
Second of all, that one of the tracks
is called The Hole in Han Solo's Chest.
Han Solo's not so noble end. Han Solo was murdered by his son. Whatever it may be. Can you imagine? Can you fathom people losing their minds?
Yeah, that's
in this day.
It's a different world.
What a different world we live in.
Yeah,
for
because
spoilers.
before Empire came out, the novelization came out, and there were hundreds, maybe thousands of people that knew that twist before they saw the movie.
That's terrible.
That's real.
Oh
real
my
life.
gosh.
Next.
So keep going.
Number 2. It has possibly the greatest lightsaber duel of all time.
I said possibly.
Depends how you define great. Depends what your metric of great. If you mean in terms of complicated choreography, maybe. In terms of emotional weight,
stunt coordinator?
Certainly not.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Emotional weight? No.
But Nick Gillard, as the stunt coordinator, did a fantastic job with these duels.
I mean, they are impressive to watch, but I think they I would rather, I'd watch the duel between Luke and Vader, just the it's simple, but it's moving. It's like an expression of the inner turmoil of the characters. It's I feel like Phantom Menace, the lightsaber fight is great, and the choreography is impressive. But as the prequels went on, I don't know. They tried to just mix it up more and more, and it became kind of less.
I think we're on 3 different planes. I think so. You like the weightiness and the thoughtfulness of the original trilogy battles.
Yes.
You seem to really like this battle and the I would say over choreography, but that kind of comes with my bias. I love the new stuff. I love the Force Awakens, The Last Jedi.
Well, that's in the spirit of the original trilogy.
That's the mix of both. It's a mix of both.
I would argue the only lightsaber duel we've gotten since Disney took over was Force Awakens, though.
I mean, they're still using lightsabers just because they're not lightsaber duels.
Yeah, Last Jedi had 2, but it wasn't lightsaber on lightsaber.
In terms of classifying duels, I would say Force Awakens is the only one.
So if this isn't a duel, then there's 3 people here. You lose. That's not a duel.
No.
Episode over.
No.
No.
It's a duel. 2 or more, we'll say, for this argument.
I mean, the use of lightsabers. I guess
called Duel of the Fates. I mean,
it is.
I guess my point is just the art and the choreographic whatever behind dueling, using a lightsaber. Whether it's on somebody else is using a lightsaber, or whether it's on drones, or if it's on Imperial, whatever. Using a lightsaber, the actually wielding a lightsaber, I think I like the most in the current trilogy.
So the Rey and Kylo Ren fight I get goosebumps.
It's so good.
Even thinking about it, and how but I'll say this, I appreciate both sides of it. So I appreciate in episode 1 when we've got Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul, where it's so it's elegant. It's kind of like the heyday of to a point of the Jedi Knights, and Darth Maul is like one of the greatest fighters ever, but apparently Obi-Wan's better. Anyway,
weird, right?
Rey and Kylo Ren are the total opposite of that. Like Kylo's beat to hell,
aggressive.
He just took that bowcaster shot to his abdomen.
Very emotional,
let alone he just killed his dad.
Yeah.
He is a mess right now in his head with Snoke. He's kind of a newly turned dark side guy at this point.
Yeah.
Rey is just discovering her power, and I love how they're so all over the place with it, and it's not anything that we saw which was so precise in the prequels, where this is just kind of they're swinging these heavy lightsabers at each other, and those guys are swinging them at it like they've been doing this their whole lives, which they have.
There is something refreshing watching this right after watching the original trilogy, which I did recently. The original trilogy is a little too weighty for me. Watching it nowadays, it is just it's a little too much like watching a kid with a blindfold trying to hit a piñata. That's just my.
I would understand that maybe a little bit for the A New Hope, Obi-Wan,
I was just gonna say
Darth Vader
even
fight.
the final,
all the rest of them, I wouldn't say that.
Even in Jedi, I feel that way in the final battle.
Oh no!
There are great parts of it. Of course,
I mean, we should save that for the Jedi.
We will.
Last thought on my part, but you guys finish your thoughts.
Sure.
Is that Return of the Jedi fight is again kind of almost to a point where Rey and Kylo are coming from. Like Vader is beat to hell from what he's gone through with Luke there, and Luke is fired up.
Yes, yeah.
Ready to go, and he's swinging that thing like there's no tomorrow. And again, really a lack of a lot of formal lightsaber training.
Yeah.
So I appreciate all the specifics there.
So yeah, it was refreshing for me to go back to episode 1 and to see the way they handle these things. That first scene when they're on the Trade Federation ship and they're just destroying these things and they know what they're doing.
I loved
that's very cool.
Qui-Gon coming through the door and thinking, even in theaters, like, oh my gosh, a lightsaber
the door's
can
melting.
melt like a door. Yeah.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You remember they did their little super speed thing?
Why did they never do that again? Why did they do that once?
Yeah, that's
Why was that in the movie?
Like
that was
a dash
weird,
in a video game, right? Like
they
dashed down the hall.
Yeah, but
they only used it once. It was like the one time in their life.
That would have been so convenient for so many other parts in this movie.
Why didn't Obi-Wan use that on Mustafar?
Come on, George. All right, so lightsabers thing, we got that down.
Yeah,
I think we're all on different planes here. We all have a different trilogy.
We agree on the music thing. That thing.
Also, there's not a lightsaber battle that I don't love. Or duel, whatever we want to call it. I love them all.
I don't love them in the original trilogy.
I do.
That's fine. You're allowed to have different opinions.
Me and John are going to disagree.
Number 3.
Thank you.
It has one of the best villains in Star Wars history. Sorry, I butchered that.
Wait,
do you get what I'm saying?
Darth Maul?
Yeah. I'm with Josiah. He's awesome. He's not fully realized. But
I mean, let's discount anything Clone Wars did with him. Or Rebels. Well, if we're just talking about sheerly on the movie's merit.
Did you see the way he backflipped off that speeder on Tatooine?
I mean, I'll argue the merits of Ray Park all day long, but
the
merits of Darth Maul, I mean, compared to Darth Vader, the Emperor, Kylo Ren and Darth Vader, those are the best 2 Star Wars villains of all time. I mean, in terms of strictly the movies.
Mad. I don't really like Darth Vader.
I've never heard that. This is when like I was 15 and someone told me the prequels were bad. It's like I didn't know anyone could not like Darth.
Yeah, no. So
that you look like Pavlak right now, just being told this horrible truth.
I'm gonna
like
horrible
truth. Well,
it's not a truth.
From
It's
a
not a
point
truth.
of view.
It's an opinion.
So
From
it's like
Get
someone
outta
just
here
told
with this.
Pavlak they didn't like Legend of Zelda.
No,
That's the face I imagine you made.
No,
right
this
now.
is worse. I feel like Pavlak could align with that more than Seth can align with this.
Pavlak would like choke. He'd force choke you.
But I think Pavlak understands that there are people that don't like Zelda. I think I just blew his mind.
No, I don't think Pavlak understands.
No, okay.
it.
Then I'm misunderstood.
I've never heard
let's bring it
anybody
up on a
say
podcast.
that like
Let's
Darth
do it next
Vader.
time.
We just did.
Okay. Anyway, Vader.
I don't know. Vader's a little boring to me. Especially rewatching after having the prequels and having this new trilogy. Vader's a little one-dimensional.
That's weird.
I
I've
know.
never heard
Okay,
that.
but
It's just me.
counterpoint.
I mean,
I appreciate that he likes
your
Darth
opinion
Maul.
is your opinion. It is what it is. I haven't heard that.
So-
It
I
misses
haven't
for
heard
me.
that.
Shout out to Aaron Weaver. I'll at you on this video. He's the only other person on this planet I think that agrees with me that Vader's fine.
Sounds
So
like
I
a
got to
horrible
meet Ray
person.
Park.
Fine.
You did.
He was at the first Nickel City, and Lauren and I took a picture. We got like our photo ops with him. There's not a lot of celebrities I would take photo ops with, and I really wanted to meet him because Darth Maul is one of my favorite Star Wars villains ever, if not characters. And so he's just like he's crazy. He's so strong. He's into martial arts. Like this guy is jacked.
So I do, man. Go practice my wushu. Go right
That's
here,
precisely why they didn't let him talk in the movie. Like that's a dubbed over voice.
They painted his mouth shut.
So Lauren goes, "Can you pick me up for the picture?" Like he could, like she was nothing. Like there's no doubt about it.
Uh-huh.
And he goes, "I can't, but we can pose." And it was just the funniest thing in the world. So like they're
Just like legally.
Yeah,
something.
or just like yeah,
like-
they probably just
you're
yeah.
not allowed
just
to
like-
for like the liability
That makes
For-
sense.
yes,
for what
yeah,
it was
yeah.
That
like,
makes a lot of sense.
which was really funny.
But
But
Ray Park is great. He's an amazing martial artist stuntman. I love him.
I love him at Star Wars Celebration. They bring him back every few celebrations, and just
Yeah.
how crazy he gets. Like I love his passion and enthusiam for all of it.
Always find out
So-
what's going on with his wushu.
I
to hear
appreciate
about
him.
it.
Yeah.
The biggest
Yes.
problem with Maul was very underrealized. Like I would have loved to have seen him throughout the entire.
I'm with
Exactly,
you. Do you
yes.
feel
trilogy.
like Rebels and Clone Wars aside,
I haven't
that this
seen either of
character
them.
was wasted?
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. There was no reason for that to. I mean, I guess because he could have easily still killed Qui-Gon, and you don't need that redemption right away from.
What if he had escaped?
Yeah, what if that redemption arc for Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi? What if that's 3 movies, and what if that means more than just a single like swipe of a lightsaber, which wasn't a great scene anyways. Like it kind of breaks its own rules. He had the high ground for like 5 minutes.
100%.
Oh right,
100%. And it seems like it's crazy that Maul was stunned by that.
I mean, it was just that was one of those like those examples to me. If that's just a bad scene, that if that's in a movie in 2019, I'm rolling my eyes in the back of my head.
I also didn't
That's
like
bad.
actually that they brought him back for Clone Wars. Now I like if I suspend that thought, I liked his presence in Clone Wars. I know you haven't seen it. And Rebels. We get a really, really, really awesome interaction between Maul and Kenobi. If you don't care about spoilers, go look it up. It's great.
Yeah.
Like it's like
And-
what you wanted, I think,
I'm gonna watch that when Disney Plus comes out.
in the movies. And we get Maul like a little cameo in Solo, which I was hoping would lead to more movies in that kind of like Solo subset.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But I mean, yeah, and George Lucas, I mean, he was Clone Wars, he was there for that. He gave the okay on that kind of a thing. I think initially the idea was that Darth Maul was chopped in half so that there was no way he could come back, but I guess, Filoni just made it happen. So, glad they ended up doing that because, there's a lot to be done with that character.
Cool character. So-
And while I would have liked to have seen him endure through the prequel trilogy, there are also some other characters that came up that I love the presence of Count Dooku, even though he's also kind of underutilized. But
Christopher Lee,
get into
man.
that in-
Dooku was fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll get into it another time.
Grievous, great too. All right, so yeah, as one of the best villains in Star Wars history, I'll give you a half point. Number 4.
I'll give you no points.
I don't know what this.
I'm
take
keeping
your-
this
You
one.
get negatives.
Yeah.
Unpopular opinion: the CGI effects are the best in the prequel trilogy. That doesn't even matter.
No.
It's like that's.
I mean, that's just. I think that's objectively like, the years go by and the CGI gets better, unless they're like really slacking in Episode 3, which they weren't.
I feel like
and plus that's. I mean, in the prequel.
The
trilogy.
battle with the Gungans on Naboo looks like the Bliss wallpaper on Windows XP the whole time. It's awful.
I think some of the effects in 2 and then even worse in 3 are noticeably worse than in Episode 1 as a whole.
I think I will give you that the Phantom Menace utilizes practical sets and practical costumes more than any other prequel movie.
For example, I'm sorry.
And that's a big thing. So I think that and then the CGI supplementing that makes a lot of things look better, and they rely more and more on CGI as the time goes on. But I wouldn't necessarily say that the CGI itself in episode 1 is better than what they did in like episode 3.
Isn't it true that there's only one shot in episode 1 that doesn't have CGI?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's true.
I wouldn't be surprised
there's only
at all.
one literal. You can look it up. There's one scene that's not.
They were trying to stick more towards utilizing a lot of sets and practical effects.
I love the look of
more than they.
As I pictured in the article, Naboo. I think Theed Palace is what this is. I think that looks great.
So I think you're talking, from my perspective, you're talking more about art design than you are about actual CGI.
Probably for the most part, yeah.
But
we're talking art design. I have some good things to say.
Yeah, me
this
too.
Movie. Yeah.
Besides the Bliss wallpaper and Naboo, that's horrible. But this, the CGI isn't good. I mean, the shadows, the lighting, like it's 2019. There are video games that look better than this. Like not even close.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, and that's just the way it, and that's just the way. But no, I mean, in terms of art direction, I mean I think the.
I took a drink of mine and I was like, "What?"
I thought I just did too. Now you said that, I'm like, "What's
so weird?"
The prequel trilogy does have its own distinct, look and setting going on, and it was, I think it was like
very flat and shiny.
Part of the like original conceit for when Lucas did have the idea for 9 movies, that the original 4 through 6 would be kind of like more poppy, comic booky. The sequel trilogy would be kind of more contemplative and philosophical, and the prequel trilogy would be more. It looked kind of like a stage play and be kind of Machiavellian, and to extent it kind of is. And credit for it being its own distinct thing. In terms of art design, it does kind of craft its own unique identity and visit some kind of new environments, kind of in a sense better than a lot of the sequel trilogy does. Even though I think those movies are way better. I mean that is something that's really interesting about the prequels.
Yeah, I see what you're saying with what it could be going for with where it looks like a stage play, but I think the lack of practical sets really misses the mark there. I mean, it's just tough for me to buy that.
Episode 1 has its share. I mean, there is a lot of CGI, but they really went crazy with CGI in 2 and 3.
That's what I'm saying. It got progressively more utilized, and even by that default, let's say they were all even in terms of quality, by using it more, it almost subtracts from it, because CGI typically does not age well. In most cases, it does not. And if more of it is used in episodes 2 and 3, then I think that by default, episode 1 would get it on that argument alone.
Yeah.
Now, there are arguments to be had over quality, but I think largely it was some of the best looking in Phantom Menace.
I just think it's because there's still a lot of practical stuff that the CGI is complementing in episode 1. There is, in a sense,
whatever the reason,
the visual effects overall of episode 1, maybe they are the best of the
even
3.
like I think of every clone trooper. There was not a single clone trooper armor set made for Attack of the Clones. Like they're all
CGI.
all digital.
And like with episode 1, I remember the waterfalls. I think on Naboo, I remember seeing about how they were actually like salt pouring down. They did that physically somehow with miniatures. So
episode 3 too. Like I think there's a few sequences, most notably early in the movie, like Anakin or Obi-Wan jumping out of the starfighter. Like that just looks so fake. R2 kind of igniting the super battle droids with the flames, and then like when Count Dooku pulls down the ledge onto Obi-Wan, who's laying there. Like, look at that. The way he slides there, it's like sloppy. And I'm one of the biggest Star Wars defenders that you'll ever meet in your entire life. So for me to say that, that's kind of where I get with episode 1 being the best.
But I'll reference the scene where Darth Maul comes to an end. That was awful. When
I mean, that's like a dummy that they cut in half and kind of threw down.
I mean Obi-Wan getting himself out of that predicament. It just looks so bad.
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get you.
All right, so agree to disagree. I just don't think that any of them stand out. I think they're all bad, so I don't think there's a point to make that any of them are good. So I do. Fair enough. Number 5, popular opinion, Ewan McGregor as a young Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I mean, that's easy.
Yeah. What about it?
That he is a high point.
Got it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So
love you.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, obviously,
the standout, shining star of the prequels.
Yeah. I mean, if there's any fault, it's with the writing. And with his performance,
I think he's the weakest in episode 1. I think in episode 2, he really kind of finds his footing. He's got that cool beard and
Yeah, he's starting to.
Oh, the mullet's great.
You're starting to see Alec Guinness in that, as opposed to just kind of Ewan
he's
McGregor.
got a little more a little wiser, a little more thoughtful. It's just
And then
a bit more crotchety. He's starting to
Well, he's got to deal with Hayden Christensen. That's no fun.
That'd make me crotchety.
Three
deal with
really
the Canadian all the time.
bridges. Oh boy, now we're at border wars here. So 3 really bridges that gap a lot, and I can't wait to see how much the Kenobi series even ties that closer.
I cannot wait.
That's going to be amazing on Disney Plus.
Yeah, so I think that's a universal agree on 0.5 for us.
It's an easy one. It's as easy as the John Williams stuff.
It is. We saw life before the corruption of the Old Republic and the beginning of the Empire.
It's not a strong point.
We did.
Kinda.
It is a fact. That is a fact. How we got there was not fun.
So
didn't make much sense either.
Weak point in episode 1 that has hit me over the years. I know this is funny to say, and especially last night as I'm sitting there starting this re-binge, if you will. The crawl, the first paragraph of the crawl about the text or the trade disputes, and I'm like, oh my gosh! As an
this
adult,
is a kids movie.
I'm sitting there going, oh, that's awful.
This is the worst.
My gosh!
And even just the way the politics are handled in the movie, like who's the lead in the Senate, who they just say that
Chancellor Valorum.
Chancellor Valorum. It's
Yeah,
we call for a vote of no confidence, and he's just like, all right, I'm gonna head out.
They're
he
very
looks like he was just stabbed in the back.
He just sat. No, he didn't even care. He's like, all right, I'm done.
They're very easily swayed. Everybody.
It's
Kind of bizarre, actually.
Palpatine coming to power just happens off screen. But that was a pretty important part. I would have loved to see how we made that happen. But he just like, good news, everyone. I'm it now.
Yeah.
Like he just walks into
Amidala's
dressing room and is like, got it,
nailed it. Chancellor Palpatine.
That's it.
I do. I mean, a lot about the idea of the political maneuvering and how governments can be changed and manipulated and everything like that. A democracy turning into a dictatorship. I think Lucas, it's so much, and so much of the prequel trilogy, there's great core ideas that just need to be pulled off better.
I like it.
But I think I do like it, and that's distinct from the original trilogy. They didn't have a lot of that, and political play can be done very compellingly. There are movies that do that. So.
I would have liked to see more of that with Palpatine's rise.
For sure.
Instead of I kind of just, hey, they gave me the keys to this. What do you want to do? Like, okay, cool. All right, that's interesting. Ian McDiarmid, great, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Oh, he's great.
But so my point here is I kind of like to see what the relatively established way of life was before the Empire.
I mean,
that's what you always want
in terms of day-to-day life. We didn't really see that much. I mean,
I don't know. People joke it's C-SPAN in space. And,
I mean, in terms of daily life of citizens, I'm thinking we saw Shmi and Anakin, who were on Tatooine. It wasn't too unlike. I mean, it was different from Luke because they were actually slaves, but it was. I don't know. I mean, kind of.
Again, machete order you can do without episode 1 in terms of overall plot.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So because you get the introduction of Coruscant, and there is some stuff.
I do love the sights of Coruscant.
Yes,
I do.
We'd love to see that show up in episode 9.
To touch on that lore building, I wish the Jedi weren't so incompetent already. I wish they weren't so dysfunctional.
I'm okay with that if it had been communicated more that was the case. It seems like they're just kind of dry and uninteresting and not written well. But if it was an intentional thing, people say one of the arguments for the prequels is the Jedi were out of touch and they were they didn't what was happening. They didn't have a good enough sense. They weren't compassionate enough.
Yeah.
But that just doesn't come across as intentional.
That
seems like are you reading between the lines? Is that really but again, that's a great idea if it had been pulled off. I don't know if that's what Lucas had in mind.
A series of some sort, even a small Disney Plus series, not necessarily directly around this time, but close to it would be something I would welcome.
When the Jedi were actually functional,
just more like we said, more everyday life, not necessarily for the politicians and the Jedi, but something just related to it. Because Mandalorian is not focusing on the Rebel Alliance or the New Republic or the Empire, right? I'm sure there'll be mentions of
the criminal underworld. Yeah. I mean, I've heard rumors about Rian Johnson's trilogy is supposed to be about that might lead me to think that it's goes closer to an everyday life kind of a thing. I have no idea if any of it's true. I've heard something about it taking place in the distant past and it being about one of the first people to discover kind of force sensitivity while at the same time the hyperdrive is being developed for interstellar travel, and
that's crazy.
which is I have no idea what that might be complete BS, but that would be really interesting, and that sounds like it would factor in more to everyday galactic life. I don't know if that's true or not.
Before
You just sold me.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Before I forget, on The Mandalorian, did you guys hear that there is kind of like a relatively big, they say spoiler. I don't think it would be a spoiler.
I just read the headline that's a thing. I don't know what it references.
So I was just going to ask, what do you think it references? Because I have an idea.
Oh, so that's not out there. So there's a headline that the first episode of Mandalorian like spoils something for Star Wars.
I would say it answers something.
For what? For
like
Rise of Skywalker?
A long-running Star Wars thing. And the only thing that comes to mind for me is Boba Fett.
Oh, man, maybe. That would be cool.
That would be cool.
Just
like
shedding
if he's
some
out
light
there
on
if he died.
Is Boba Fett alive? Was the original trilogy Boba Fett the clone Boba Fett?
Right,
Or was it somebody new who took on his identity?
I think that's super intriguing, and I love that they dropped that. Because
I didn't see that.
Yeah. Another topic for another time.
Cool.
But
excited about that.
Another relatively middle of the road point here, admittedly.
What was that
you
one?
know?
Oh, that was the We Saw Life Before.
Here come the gifts.
Middle of the road.
All right. Final point 7. This is a hard disagree for me.
Second to last point.
Oh God. It establishes a starting point for Anakin's issues. It didn't though.
Well, what's the starting
Debatable.
point? What's
That
the starting
he's
point?
attached to his mom.
Not in this movie. In the next movie, it does. In this movie,
He doesn't want to leave his mom.
but barely.
Execution aside.
Oh, it's not written well.
Agreed. I just said that.
He's just. I know. I'm just reiterating. It's not written well. It's not acted well. Jake Lloyd, I love you in Jingle All The Way, dude.
I like Pernilla August.
If you're
That's
watching,
me.
you crushed it in Jingle All The Way. Good movie. I don't know, man. I feel like we're just to touch back on the hero's journey. We're missing a lot of what's Anakin's flaw. He's got all the midichlorians. He's the best pilot. He's a perfect engineer. He built 3PO. What's wrong with him? What's his problem? Where's the flaw?
What they should have done
He's
is
a Mary Sue.
okay, Seth. So they should have harped more on his anger issues.
Yeah, they were not in.
Like he
the
should
Phantom
have
Menace.
destroyed someone in the pod race.
Sure, yeah.
Not that would be like.
That's
a huge
why you
thing.
start him with him as a teenager. You don't
Exactly.
start
I
him
know.
with him as a
I'm not
child.
disagreeing with you guys.
So
Again, I
yeah.
told you this is kind of a weaker point. I don't know.
That's the one that's the only one that's a hard disagree for me. I just think that was one of the biggest things that they dropped the ball on for episode 1 is just Anakin. You give me an episode 1 without Anakin. I don't know. Give me. There's a lot of other stuff that we talked about in the day-to-day life, the Jedi. If you have to do 3 movies, get this kid
Build
out
the
of it.
mythology of the Jedi Order a little bit.
Yeah.
Not a. Okay, so like 10 seconds ago, I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But now I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe you hear about this kid towards the end."
Exactly.
Okay.
Maybe they
I see
crash
where
on
you're going.
Tatooine.
That's interesting.
Final scene, they crash on Tatooine.
Oh my gosh!
Something
All
like
right,
that.
damn it,
Point
John,
number
you're a
8.
genius. Hang on. So my
boy.
favorite with Anakin and Shmi, as we're looking at this picture,
Yeah.
my favorite bit of marketing from the prequels might have been that picture of Anakin with Darth Vader as the shadow.
That was cool. That was
It
very
didn't
cool.
really lead anywhere, obviously, but I
Well, I
liked
mean-
that was the kind of build up to it.
Yeah, that's good. Is it on
Yeah.
there? Are we looking at it? I can't see.
I don't even know if
His
you're pointing
face
at
on-
anything. All I see is
He's
this.
tapping. All right.
Okay.
Last point. This is point 8 on a 7-point list. Politics and midichlorians. is
So
what
I
we
really
call it.
psyched myself out. For a second, I was like, I thought this was a 7-point article. Why would I say that? Oh, okay.
That was a joke.
Gosh.
He had a little jokey paragraph. Yeah.
Yeah,
midichlorians.
sorry.
What a bad idea. Why, Lucas?
Interesting that he makes
Why?
it a scientific thing of sorts as opposed to a...
Everything that we defined it as in the original trilogy.
How do you feel like The Last Jedi clears that up, in a way, when Luke describes the Force to Rey?
Oh,
Yeah, better.
I know you love it. I know
Just say it.
Andrew Garvey loves it. Last Jedi description for the Force for Luke. I think it's the best description we've ever gotten on it.
yeah. Yeah.
Retconned well enough. I'll take it.
Yeah, because it establishes it more as a force of nature rather than a scientific observable thing.
Yeah,
And that it doesn't belong to the Jedi. I thought that was a nice little thing too. Like it's something
Yeah,
they utilize and they are kind of symbiotes in a way, but it's not exclusive to the Jedi.
Right. Yeah.
Is how Luke describes it. All right, so we got through my list. That was kind of good for talking points there.
Yeah, that was a list.
I really thought you guys were gonna like beat on me way more, so
No.
I'll take it.
Well, I think a lot of it you've kind of come to terms with since you've written this. So
Debatable. Let's go
Okay.
through it again.
Oh, boy.
Okay. So I want to take a quick moment here to mention, if you like pop culture t-shirts, let me tell you about this. So the Geekiverse has an online merch store. Go to thegeekiverse.storingv.com. We've got over 20 designs currently available to choose from. And if you ever see us at live shows, such as Nickel City Con, or like the other day, we were at Halloween Comic Fest at Dave and Adams. We are selling those there, making them custom for you. Again, that's thegeekiverse.storeenvy.com. We've got all different kinds of shirts, not just Star Wars shirts, but we've also got Marvel themed shirts. We've got DC themed shirts. We've got God of War themed shirts.
Video games.
John, what does that God of War shirt say?
Boy.
Very good. And
Boy.
John's was
Fine.
We've even got onesies on there. So
we've got one onesie.
We've got one onesie. So if you want to rep
one.
your child's in Geekiverse apparel, we'd appreciate that. Last time, thegeekiverse.storeenvy.com. Okay, back to our list here. Not too much to go. Fanboys, the movie. You've not seen this.
I've not seen this. No.
I love this movie. So in short, it's not really a spoof movie, but it celebrates the lead up to episode 1. And I feel like when we talked about earlier kind of the hype and the build up leading up to the movie, this is a movie that captures it beautifully. Basically, it's a group of friends that love Star Wars. They are obsessed with it. They are geeks to the max. The one finds out, unfortunately, that he's got cancer. Their mission is to get him to see episode 1 before he passes away. It's actually a very funny movie. I know I just described it very dark because it is a dark topic. But Ray Park's actually in the movie. Carrie Fisher's in the movie. Billy D. Williams is in the movie. You got to see it. It was a limited run in theaters in the mid-2000s somewhere. I want to say around 2009. So end of the 2000s. But anyway, go on Amazon. I'm sure you can get it really cheap on DVD. I don't think it ever saw the light of day on Blu-ray. It's a movie that I love very much. And the last line in the movie, this is not a spoiler by any means, is the group of friends saying, what if the movie's not any good?
Oh.
And here we are.
Did this come out after the movie or before the movie?
Oh, way after. So this was like 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
That's something that was like, people would get interviewed when they were in line for Phantom Menace, and that's something that was asked of certain people, and it's really funny seeing some of the reactions before they saw the movie and after the movie in retrospect, and that question was asked of some people.
What's funny is too, even like right when Force Awakens released and people were mad hyped, and I still love it to this day. I know you do too. We'll talk about later episodes. Anyway, with people talking about how it was their favorite Star Wars movie or the best Star Wars movie, and then there's comparisons to how people talked about Phantom Menace right after seeing it. And it's very similar. Yeah. Not quite the same hold up. Granted, we're only 4 years after Force Awakens, but I have a good feeling that movie's going to hold up a lot better than Phantom Menace.
That's very, very different. I mean, but yeah, it's interesting. But no, it's like watching that old footage of people going in to hype to see that movie. It's like watching like old footage of like people boarding the Titanic.
I can't believe.
Wow.
I can't believe you. What's with you, man?
Wow.
Oh my gosh, that was the deepest cut ever. All right, well, let's change topics here. The Jar Jar Sith Lord theory from a few years back. I thought this was a blast only because it was fun. Suspended that thought that it couldn't happen, that it actually made the movie a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, this is for Jeff. It's like when we all were hyping that the Grinch was coming to Smash Brothers. We knew it wasn't going to happen, but there was like a little bit of evidence, and there was a solid week where we were all going crazy, like, is the Grinch coming to Smash Brothers? No, we knew he wasn't, but it was fun for a little while.
So they kind of dispelled this a few years ago with one of the Chuck Wendig novels, and I don't know. Do you think George Lucas wanted to go this way originally?
No, not even close. It is.
What do you think he thought of Jar Jar then? Because he had this character in high esteem.
Well,
he thought he was revolutionary technologically, for sure.
And he thought he was, a C-3PO, a comic relief. I mean, George Lucas, as he said, Jar Jar is the key to all of this. He did say that, but
it's
not
film.
in a.
You can see that being said.
Yes. Yeah.
Check out that. Google this. Check out that Reddit thread from a few years ago.
It was fun.
It's
great,
very insightful.
It's a fun theory, but I mean, yeah.
It's one of the best fan theories I've ever read, even though it's wrong.
Because it would really serve the story better if it was true. Not the story, but it would save episode 1 a little bit if it were true.
And for what it's worth, very believable. Most of it, I would say.
Yeah, there's some stretches, but it's fun. It's not real, but it's good.
Yeah, it's a good read. So definitely study up on that.
God, Jar Jar's bad.
Yeah. Again, another case. Poor Ahmed Best. You know, he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
He was well acted. He did what he was told.
Right.
Yeah,
Or
and
not told.
Yeah, and I am really happy that at the Star Wars celebration, 20th anniversary of Phantom Menace, he got a hero's welcome there because
he deserves it.
He's had it rough. He's
just like Jake Lloyd, tough.
He's struggled with suicide, and it's terrible.
We even had some of that stuff recently with the actress who played Rose in The Last Jedi. I mean, there was a lot of
Kelly Marie
She's ceaselessly
Tran,
harassed, which a lot of that is it's racism and sexism and a myriad of other things. We have your issues with the character. That's fair enough. I really like Rose personally, but
same.
Yeah,
with Rose,
we'll save it.
Save it.
We'll get there.
Just bizarre. Check out. I did write an article on this. Check it out. It's
Save
called
it.
An Open Letter
Yes,
to Kelly Marie Tran.
I recall that.
Go read that now, and then we'll obviously.
I'm in the middle of a potty right now.
Right now, pause this. Go read it.
Me?
Come
I can't
back.
Pause it.
Pause it, John. Right now.
Seth,
John. Okay, so Yoda CGI. So if you notice in the original episode 1, that what did they just update this for the Blu-ray? I think that was.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure when they specialized and they redubbed them.
I think it was for the Blu-ray. But anyway, we had Puppet Yoda originally. This was a bad Puppet Yoda.
I almost don't remember it. I've watched this copy so many times. I think I've probably seen this more times than I've not seen this one.
It's Yoda like on drugs. It's
Yeah.
bad. It's bad. So they redid it. They did the CG Yoda, which they had done for episodes 2 and 3. And apparently they didn't discover they could really do that until after episode 1. But it's not that Yoda's super prominent in this movie, but it makes a big difference.
He should be.
So top left, that's the Yoda.
Oh, don't like those eyes.
No, not close.
Yeah, I don't like that.
It's just like weird.
His face shape's different. It's like
What
just
happened?
Not, yeah.
So 2011 would tell us it's the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
we do get Puppet in Last Jedi, which makes
Thank
sense.
goodness. Yeah.
And again, I don't love that puppet, but it's a lot better than what we saw in the original episode 1. Oh my gosh, it's awful.
Yeah, we talked a little bit off camera, but it was weird watching episode 1 then 2 because Yoda CGI looks better in 1 than 2 because it did it after the fact.
Even
it's
Yoda's
kind of-
expressions too.
It's noticeable. Like he looks much better in 1 than he does in 2.
His like the expressions to the things that Mace Windu say, or even towards the very end when he's having that one-on-one conversation with Obi-Wan about Anakin, just good job overall for that. So a small upgrade.
Yeah.
Not the prequels haven't gone through nearly as much as the original trilogy has in terms of updates.
Yikes.
But that's a small one that benefited it. Casting, why don't we talk a little bit just about that? I want to start with Ian McDiarmid.
I mean, great. I mean, yeah, hold over from the original trilogy. More than welcome.
How thrilling would that have been? I'm trying to get back in that mindset, like to have Emperor Palpatine, and we're seeing, we think about young Obi-Wan, we think about young Anakin, but not so much him, I think. So we see Senator Palpatine and kind of his lack of on-screen rise to power, but still a great performance.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
One of the better ones in episode 1, despite kind of a tough execution on some of the dialogue.
And I was always confused about, because he was also Darth Sidious, and I was always confused about whether or not we were supposed to, we're watching that, at least people being familiar with the original trilogy, like, oh, that's the Emperor, like, those guys are those played by the same guy. They're the same person. Like, are we supposed to know that? I'm not sure if that's supposed to be a surprise or not, but okay.
I think it's on the nose enough.
I genuinely just realized that.
Even
I was
people
never
watching
sure.
for the first time, I think that's supposed to be on the nose enough where, like, you're supposed to know, right?
Okay.
Like, there's not, I would say so.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I kind of see where you're coming from. Like, I wonder.
Yeah, because it's the way it's depicted. It's like it seems like maybe
it kind of seems like they were setting it up for a surprise, but it was almost too obvious.
Yeah.
For that to happen.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So
I didn't have a problem with casting, to be honest. There's not a single character I can point to that I could like. That was terrible casting.
It's funny that they list Jake Lloyd.
Jake Lloyd number 1. Oh yeah, well, it was. Yeah, I mean, I thought for me it was more dialogue and direction, and the fact that they're working with non-practical sets.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
it's difficult.
Look at this list, though.
Liam Neeson is a Jedi Master on paper. That's great.
I thought even on film, I loved Qui-Gon.
Natalie Portman.
What do you need to say?
She became a star, I would say, as a result of this, or right after this, right? Like, she was not quite a household name just yet.
No, not household
Right,
name. She's been acting since she was 11 years old. She's a career actress, but this is what put her on the map. Like,
I mean,
critically.
Ewan
sure.
McGregor too, I would
Leon,
say.
Come on.
I'm not familiar enough with Ewan's pre-Star Wars career.
Oh, Train Spotting, Shallow Grave, Danny Boyle movies. Those are what I'm most familiar with him. There goes Cameron B.
Thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot, Camera B. Ahmed Best, obviously, we mentioned as Jar Jar Binks. Anthony Daniels as C-3PO is a nice thing. He's been in every single Star Wars movie to date. The only actor to be in every single one.
Terrence Stamp was kind of wasted as Chancellor Valorum. Terrence Stamp is
yeah,
great.
yep.
That was kind of vanilla. Yeah.
I don't know enough about him, but that character was definitely wasted.
I remember Terrence Stamp from Jim Carrey's movie Yes Man.
Oh, okay.
He's the guy who like is on stage and he's like the leader of the Yes Man, which I think is funny.
Nice.
Frank Oz obviously as Yoda, legendary there. I actually liked Pernilla August as Shmi Skywalker, so Anakin's mom.
Oh yeah, she was good. I thought so too.
I thought she did a fine job, and honestly, that led into her a good brief performance in episode 2, a meaningful.
Oh yeah, that was a good scene.
Sequence.
We'll get there.
Kenny Baker, the late Kenny Baker, is R2D2. Oh yeah, here we go.
Are we skipping over Samuel L. Jackson?
No, we're coming back to him.
Sorry, I just had to look at the
why would you do that?
The
So he actually looks kind of cool.
Lloyd and the big. Well, that's Dark Side Anakin.
Oh man.
That's him and compared to his mugshot. I just had to click on that and take a look.
So I think he kind of actually looks like
Vadery?
a little bit Vadery and a little bit like Luke there. I gotta say, like I can see it more of a stretch or less of a stretch than Hayden Christensen. Anyway, this is also great. Keira Knightley as one of the handmaidens.
Oh, can we go back? That was confusing. Even today, that was confusing. When she was the queen and when she was in makeup, like I feel like there was a scene where she was the queen and the handmaiden wasn't, and then like the next scene, nothing was supposed to have changed, and they flipped them.
There was a story that Kira's mom, who was on set, because her and Natalie Portman were both very young,
Sure.
Did not know the difference between the two when they were both in makeup.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's kind of crazy seeing them side by side.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's some scenes where they weren't even sure, and they're just like,
This was just
roll with it. Roll with it.
George is like, who do we got there?
These kids are not going to
We'll
know.
just edit it post. Yeah.
Yeah, that was confusing for me as an adult.
This
That
was
just
I'm with you.
I understood what they were going for, of course, but like the when and where she was switching, that was just like that wasn't choreographed. That wasn't told to me properly.
That was a sequence last night where I was like, who's on screen right now? Who's the queen? Who's the
Yeah.
So this is 2 years before Pirates of the Caribbean, so she exploded to fame after that. We did not mention, and we're getting back to Samuel L. Jackson. So the story, I believe, was that he kind of like begged George Lucas to be in this. Yes.
So I don't know that. I know that Tupac Shakur begged George Lucas to be in this, and this movie started filming
Did
2
he
months.
really?
This movie started filming 2 months after his death.
I didn't know
And
that.
so there was no
Whoa.
casting information out there, but the assumption was he was supposed to be Mace Windu.
Oh, I didn't know that. I
So-
always heard that Sam wanted to, like, really, really wanted to be in this.
Look up the Tupac stuff. I think
Okay.
there's like interviews with him.
I mean,
back-
it makes sense for both of them to
Yeah.
really want to be in it. Why not? It's Star
for sure.
Wars.
I mean, yeah, they probably both grew up with Star Wars in,
And Sam
in
Jackson's
different
in
ways.
everything.
Nowadays, was he back then? I guess I don't know enough about '90s movies to know if he was.
Well,
But
this is your
Oh,
guy.
Sam Jackson?
Yeah.
Oh,
he was in everything.
you ever
back
heard
then
of
too.
Pulp Fiction?
No.
Mother.
No.
I mean, he was in Spike Lee movies. He
Yeah.
was in Die Hard 3. I mean,
Oh,
he,
yeah, there
he
you
was
go.
a household
He's
name
in
at
everything.
that point, I would
Oh yeah,
say.
I knew he was a household name. I just didn't know if he was just cashing checks like he is nowadays with trash movies. But
Trash movies.
I'm sorry, I'm not going there.
Whoa. Holy hell.
I
I'm really
actually-
happy about this dynamic. I thought
actually-
you guys were just gonna gang up on me. On
I
that, so
literally
this is
just said that for a reaction. I had no idea what I was talking about.
you got one.
I
but-
have no, I have no context for what
great.
I
All
was talking
right, well,
about there.
After this, Seth is gonna need about 50 minutes tops with you just to explain things.
There's nothing to explain. That was just a joke. Mace Windu kind of wasted. Did we think he was great in this movie? Or was the character wise?
I mean,
this movie, it
there's
was
a
wha-
lot more that could have been done with Samuel L. Jackson. He's a lot more dynamic than Mace Windu.
Just kind of look at their Silas
Can we
Cars.
talk? Greg Proops says Bode.
Fode.
No, we don't really need to talk about
What
Greg
about
Proops.
the scene-stealing Rick McCallum?
Rick McCallum was in episode 1. I didn't even know that.
Naboo Courier. So
You can
interesting.
see them in the cockpit. You can
Silas-
see their heads moving.
Wow, that was like that on. Silas Carson is Newt Gunray. He's also Ki-Adi-Mundi, the guy with the huge brain in the Jedi Council.
Oh, yeah.
Same guy.
Conehead, yeah.
Let's see here.
Sofia Coppola was in. I didn't even know this.
I knew that.
I know that he's friends with Francis Ford Coppola.
Warwick
but-
Davis, you see him most notably in the pod race sequence.
Oh yeah, he's next to Jabba, right?
Yep.
Hanging out there. Was he Wicket?
Wicket, Willow.
He's in Solo. He's a cameo in every Star Wars movie now.
Peter
That's cool.
Serafinowicz was the voice of Darth Maul, who you might know from Shaun of the Dead, the John Wick movies, not the John Fick movies.
I always think I'm saying John Wick, and you have to go back and make sure I didn't say that.
Yeah,
not an
and
insult.
the new Amazon Tick series,
the John Tick movies.
We talked about Ray Park as Darth Maul. Obviously, incredible choreography for his part.
Great whoosh.
Loved it.
And I think we've basically covered everyone that was prominent in there.
Yeah, I think overall, I think casting.
It's a good cast.
Casting was fine. There was no. The fact that all the acting was bad makes me believe that it wasn't the acting that was the problem.
Oh, damn it, Seth. So yeah, right. What's the common denominator?
Exactly.
Is the thing there? You want to just scroll on
I
and
was
see?
just scrolling through.
I don't know if there's
wait a minute. James Taylor was in episode 1.
Where?
James Taylor. He was Rune Hako. I don't know who that
These
is.
are all fake names.
I've just found out.
I don't know if any of these, like, once we get
that
this
James
far to the
Taylor
right, I don't know
was
if
in
these
Phantom Menace.
This is all fake.
are accurate. So yeah,
No, I'm sure they're all real.
I don't know.
Wow. Yeah, that blew my mind. Okay.
Yeah. We talked about the Qui-Gon Jinn's Noble End spoiler, which I thought was hilarious with Jared Petty.
Yeah, that was cool.
Before we get to where it stands in our current rankings here, what any final thoughts on this movie?
Nah, just no final thoughts. Yeah, I think just
I'm okay.
Seth, a man, a few words.
Sum it up. I think
For once.
it's not a good movie, but there's a lot to enjoy. It is very Star Wars. I think the lightsaber battles were very refreshing. Thought pod racing was fun, especially as a kid. I liked it, and I don't hate it as an adult. That's where I'm at with it. Wasn't good, but it's what we got.
I will continue to watch it every year that there's a Star Wars movie, and probably years that there are not Star Wars movies. So it is what it is.
It is its own flavor, and I do have a lot of nostalgia for it, and sometimes I do want to watch it, even though I recognize it's not a good movie, and but yeah, it does have its own identity. It has its own place.
So we talked about this coming out May 19th, 1999. Did you realize it was in theaters till November 4th?
Holy cow! Yeah, they used
Makes
to
sense.
do
That used to happen, right?
That was back in like the Titanic days, where it was in theaters for months.
Movies
and
were not
months.
so accessible. Now we have them on home video 3 months after release. And that will be even shorter, I imagine, in a few years.
Yeah.
So,
Day one digital. Give it to me.
oh gosh, rankings here. Who wants to go first? Where do you have it in your current rankings?
I'll go first. If you would have asked me on Friday, I would have said second last behind Attack of the Clones. If you ask me now that I watched both of those movies back to back, this is definitely worse.
So you have it 10.
Yeah, this is the worst Star Wars movie.
I have it at 10. I think that compared to the other prequel stuff, I think there's some other prequel stuff, specifically Episode 2, that is kind of messier in a lot of ways, and there are things about it that are worse. But Phantom Menace ultimately is just such a slog. It's just so boring to get through. It's just less interesting. It's the least interesting to watch. So
Most forgettable, no doubt about it.
Yeah. So and
offensive.
ultimately it's the most unnecessary. So number 10.
Are there 10? Is that last place?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's the 8 and then Solo
2,
and
got
Rogue
it.
One. So
We're there. We're all together.
So this may come as a surprise. I have it number 10 as well.
Okay.
Because something had to be last. And we'll talk about Solo when we get to it, because
It's a higher number 10 than
come
our
on.
10.
that caused some internet controversy recently. But anyway, yeah, I've got it 10, kind of with the thought that if it's Star Wars, I like it. Let's be honest. I'm gonna admit that.
I agree. No, I agree with that too.
I like anything Star Wars.
Liking and recognizing quality is different in my mind.
Sure. Yeah. Like, well, go read my Solo review. You'll see what I scored it, even though I love Solo. So yeah, there's that. But this was a really fun episode. I'm actually really excited to see where this goes over the course of this mini series here. Again, Hindsight, a Star Wars series, will be available in podcast form on iTunes and SoundCloud, as well as on YouTube. So that's youtube.com/thegeekiverse. Why don't we wrap up here? What's on the burner for you for Geekiverse, and where can we find you on social media? I'm going to start with John.
Social media on all platforms at Disruptoid. You find me there. Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, doing some streaming, playing lots of video games, doing that kind of mostly with all my free time, watching bad Star Wars movies and streaming video games.
Don't talk to me. All right, Seth.
The Geekiverse in the form of Seth and Nate are going to be at Retro Game Con in Syracuse this weekend, so that's going to be very cool. And other than that, we're going to keep rolling on with this. And just me, I am highly anticipating not only the Rise of Skywalker, but Death Stranding as well, which I'll be playing very shortly.
Oh, yep.
So that's the gist.
For me, so by the time this is aired, I'll have gotten my hands on Luigi's Mansion 3. Can't wait for that. And then Death Stranding is next for me. And after Death Stranding, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh, right.
So
right,
it's a fun time to be a gamer.
Can't wait.
So shortly you'll be able to read my review if you are into gaming on Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Spoiler alert, it's going to be a really nice number. They did a really good job with it, both in multiplayer and single player. But if you love Star Wars, you are in the right place. I am on social media at Josiah D. Leroy. I don't have it's as cool of a Twitter handle as either of these guys. I just have my name. It's boring.
Oh, right, I'm Cap Americansky.
My name was taken, so I made something up.
Disruptoid. It's great. I asked him what it meant, and he's like, I just made it up. It's good.
I literally sat there one day, and I found a website that just compared all social platforms and told you what was taken. And I just kept throwing shit at it.
Well, it's a good one.
Disruptoid's good, yeah.
That happened.
So last thing to plug here, in addition to the forthcoming episodes in this Hindsight series, is we recently launched a brand new show at the Geekiverse. In addition to Geeks Got Game and the Memory Machine, you can now listen and watch on a monthly basis to Pluscast, which is a Disney Plus themed show. We talk about all of the news surrounding it, previews, reviews for past episodes, so on and so forth.
A lot of Star Wars content coming.
Lots. So Mandalorian coming in just a few short weeks. But John and I, along with Amanda, had our first episode filmed at Dave and Adams just this past week. So you'll be able to watch that very shortly. And honestly, it's a good episode to watch. If for no other reason, it's Disney Plus 101. We give you the ins and outs of everything that is coming to what's going to be a mega streaming giant. So lots of Star Wars coverage coming up, including The Mandalorian, specifically on Disney Plus. Tune in to Pluscast for all the most up-to-date, in-depth Star Wars coverage. I promise you're not going to find a better place than the Geekiverse.
What would you know about promises? You never keep your promises. You never do anything you say you're going to do, ever!
Damn you, Howard.